I can tell you the exact minute my life went crooked. 2:13 a.m. I was in bed, phone face down, half asleep. A memory slid into me like a thin, cold blade. Sharp, precise, and not mine. I was 6 years old, barefoot on tile, standing in a kitchen that smelled like lemon cleaner and wet pennies. The light above the stove hummed. There were handprints low on the fridge, sticky with grape jelly, and the clock over the sink read 3:07 in cheap red numbers. I could feel the seam of my pajama shorts against a scab on my knee I did not have. I could hear a woman singing out of tune, my mother but not my mother. And then I turned toward the hallway and saw her, a girl about 9. Black hair blunt to the jaw, a white t-shirt with a tiny blue stain near the collar. She looked straight past me like I was the reflection, not her. She lifted one hand as if to wave and stopped halfway, as if she'd been taught not to finish that kind of greeting. I remember thinking her eyes were the wrong color. Not brown, not green, something damp and reflective, like the inside of a seashell. Then the memory snapped like a rubber band. I was back in my room, panting hot, drum rolling up my throat. My real clock said 2:13. The hum came from my old fridge in the kitchen down the hall. I could smell dust and sleep and the sour edge of laundry. Everything familiar, everything safe, except for the way my body remembered a scab that wasn't there. I didn't sleep after that. I kept rehearsing details, like a witness giving a statement to a cop who won't look up from his pad. Lemon cleaner, grape jelly, 3:07, humming light. The girl. I didn't tell anyone the next day. Who do you call for a memory that doesn't belong to you? A neurologist? A priest? Customer support? On the second night at 2:13 a.m. again, it happened once more, but shorter, like a clip on repeat. The same kitchen, the same humming, the same girl in the hallway, hand raised half a wave, eyes like wet nacre. Only this time, there was a sound behind her, a shuffling, and she flinched. When I woke, my palms were sweating as if I'd been the one caught. On the third night, I brought a notebook to bed and a pencil. When it struck, I let it ride through me and then sat up and drew her in the dark. Lines without lifting the pencil, a blind contour. Hair to the jaw, t-shirt stain, shell-colored eyes. The sketch wasn't good, but the shape of her felt right. I took the notebook to work and hid it under a stack of onboarding forms. I told myself I was being dramatic. My coworker Danny noticed anyway. "You look like you fought a raccoon," she said, stirring powdered creamer into coffee. "What's with the night bruises?" "Nightmares," I said. "Except they're memories. From when?" "Not mine." I tried to laugh. It sounded like a cough. Danny asked to see the drawing. I said no. She asked again. I handed it over. She stared a long time. "Why did you draw my cousin?" I felt my jaw stiffen. "What?" She used to wave like this halfway. My aunt told her not to wave at strangers through the window. Danny handed the notebook back, eyes pinned on me like thumbtacks. "What's her name?" "I don't know." "Me neither," she said. "I don't have a cousin." Then she shook herself, a dog coming out of water. "Okay, that was weird. Sorry. I didn't sleep either." We called it a coincidence and went back to spreadsheets and small talk. But that evening, Danny texted me a photo, a page from her own notebook. The same girl, hair to the jaw, white t-shirt, stain at the collar. A different hand drew it, but the face was mine. I woke up with this in my head. "Did you send me the idea? Like Inception?" I didn't answer for an hour. When I did, my message looked like a lie even to me. Probably just because I showed you mine. "You didn't. Not this one." That was how it started to spread. Quietly, like mold you don't notice until the air smells like an old basement. 3 people in our office drew her within a week. A barista on the corner taped a sketch to the tip jar. Missing. No name, just the face. A child on the subway told his mother he remembered the jelly hands on the fridge and wanted grape jam now, please. That wasn't his mother's brand. She didn't buy grape. I kept telling myself we were passing around a story the way people pass around a song, half-remembered lyrics infecting new voices. But at night the memory kept coming back, not softer but sharper, like a blade honed on the stone of my skull. I began to notice something behind the girl, a darker shape in the hallway, as if a shadow had learned to stand up. Saturday, Danny asked to come over. "Bring your notebook," she said. "Let's science this." We sat at my kitchen table with 2 notebooks and 2 pencils and set a timer for 2 minutes. We didn't show each other our drawings until it chimed. When we turned the pages, my fingers went cold. They matched. Not just the face, the tilt of the head, the half-wave, the smudge of the stain. Danny had even drawn the same faint nail crescent on the left wrist, a detail I hadn't noticed before I drew it. "Okay," Danny said, voice flat. "This is not nothing. We could ask more people," I offered. "A test. A dangerous test," she said, thumb rubbing the paper as if she could smudge the girl away. "What if we're not collecting data? What if we're collecting her?" That night, I taped our drawings to the wall by my bed. I told myself it would help me feel in control, the way naming a fear makes it smaller. It didn't. I kept waking up at 2:13 like a house-trained dog. Each time, the memory added one more grain of sand to fill the room. A chipped tile, a fridge magnet shaped like a pear, a small silver key on a nail near the doorframe. At 3:07 in the wrong kitchen, the humming light seemed to brighten like it knew I was there. On the fifth night, the memory changed. I wasn't standing on tile anymore. I was looking into a bathroom mirror. The glass was fogged from a shower that hadn't happened yet. Numbers written with a fingertip appearing backward. 3:07. A girl stood behind me in the steam. Her. She raised her hand and stopped halfway. Half a wave. I woke with the taste of metal in my mouth and stumbled for the bathroom to splash water on my face. My mirror was dark. My apartment was quiet. The hum from the fridge felt miles away. I reached for the light and caught a smudge in the corner of the glass. A fingerprint I didn't recognize. I wiped it with my palm. It didn't move. I leaned closer. It wasn't a print. It was condensation. On the mirror backward. Someone had written 3:07. I stood there, counting the beats of my heart, until I realized the glass was cold under my fingers but wet where the numbers were. The water was fresh, as if a breath had just passed over it. I locked myself in the bathroom. It felt safer to be trapped than to be open. I watched the mirror until my breath made its own ghosts and then wiped them away. I said out loud like an idiot, "What do you want?" My voice sounded thin, like a child trying not to cry. From the hallway, something answered, a soft, sticky sound like a hand lifting off a surface. A jelly hand, I thought, and wanted to throw up. The door handle moved. I didn't look away from the mirror because I was afraid if I looked at the handle, I would see it turn all the way. I kept my eyes on the numbers. 3:07. My mind tried to make it math, something safe to solve. 3 plus 7 is 10. 10 is 2 fives. 2 fives are a pair. Pair of eyes stop. The handle stopped. The house exhaled. I exhaled. Nothing moved. I slept in the bathtub because I thought maybe nothing could get me there if I was already in a place made for water and drains. I woke aching and absurd and alive. When I shuffled into the kitchen, I found something on the floor under the doorway. A small silver key, the same shape, the same size as the one I had seen hanging by a nail in the wrong kitchen. I didn't own a key like that. Not until then. I texted Danny a picture. "Where did you get that?" "My hallway. Don't use it. I promised I wouldn't." I lied. By afternoon, I had already turned it over 50 times in my hand, learning its ridges and the way it bit the pad of my thumb. It wanted something. Or maybe I wanted it to want something, because wanting gives you a way to negotiate. At 2:13 a.m., the memory rose like a tide. I was back in the kitchen. The girl was closer now. I could see the crescent nail mark on her wrist again. She raised her hand halfway. I raised mine to meet it. When our fingers almost touched, a heavy shape moved behind her. A shadow, a person, a parent, I couldn't tell. The hum of the light grew louder, grief wrapped in electricity. The girl finally completed the wave. I woke to a sound like metal in a lock. My front door. The key in my palm turned by itself. I didn't sleep again after the key turned. I sat in my living room with every light on, the key placed like a loaded gun on the coffee table. I didn't touch it again, not after it moved. It just lay there, innocent, shiny, complicit. I kept expecting someone to knock. Or worse, to not knock. The hours dragged like wet laundry. At one point, I stood in front of the mirror, daring it to fog again. I even held my breath to see if the moisture came from somewhere else. Nothing. Just my pale, twitchy reflection, and the sound of my refrigerator humming down the hallway like a ghost snoring in its sleep. By dawn, I convinced myself I'd imagined the sound. The key was real, yes, but maybe it had always been there. Maybe I kicked it under the table days ago. Maybe. I didn't believe it, but I needed something, anything, to fit into the world I knew. I put the key in a drawer. Then I locked the drawer. The next day at work, Danny didn't come in. No text, no out-of-office reply. I called her. Straight to voicemail. By noon, 2 more co-workers had mentioned the girl. Karen said she dreamed of a child watching her from the bathroom mirror. Vince said his 4-year-old daughter drew a girl with a wavy hand and said she was living inside the kitchen light. That phrase chilled me in a way I couldn't explain. Not under the kitchen light. Not near it. Inside, I went to the break room. The coffee pot had a reflective surface. When I poured a cup, the shimmer of black showed 2 silhouettes, not one. I turned around so fast I spilled coffee down my wrist. No one was behind me. But I swear, the second shape had been smiling. That night, I FaceTimed Danny. No answer. I tried again. Still nothing. Instead, I called someone I barely knew. Reed, a guy I'd met once at a co-worker's birthday party. He'd mentioned a Discord group where people shared unusual dreams and memory distortion stories. Back then, I'd written him off as high on something herbal. Now I was desperate. He answered like he'd been expecting it. "You've seen her too?" I didn't ask how he knew. I just said, "Where do I start?" He sent me an invite link. The group had a name, The Repeating Room. Inside were hundreds of people, mostly lurking. Some posted grainy sketches. Others described scenes, the jelly fridge, the kitchen clock, the mirror steam. It wasn't just a phenomenon anymore. It was a plague. One post froze me. "I found a silver key in my shoes this morning. I live alone. No idea what it opens. It's cold even in sunlight," another said. "We did an experiment. 20 of us tried to draw her blindfolded. 17 drawings matched. The stain on her shirt moved locations, but it was always blue. And then this. She can't live without reflection. Don't stand in front of mirrors at 3:07. I closed the app. Reed messaged me privately. "Want to meet IRL? We do a memory circle every Friday. Share, compare, confirm." Normally, I'd never say yes to something that sounded like a cult offering free Kool-Aid, but nothing in my life was normal anymore. We met at an old community center downtown. Flickering lights, folding chairs, cheap cookies on a plastic table. It looked like a failed PTA meeting. There were 7 of us. Most looked tired in a way that doesn't come from sleep deprivation. It came from questioning reality itself. A woman named Shay spoke first. "I remember brushing someone else's hair, a girl with eyes like pearls. She thanked me. I don't have kids," Reed followed. "I was a teacher in a memory. I gave her a paper with a gold star. She told me, 'It's not my turn yet.'" A man in his 50s whispered, "She's in my family photos now." He passed around a Polaroid from 1998, a birthday party, balloons, kids with frosting on their cheeks. In the far left corner, her, faded, grainy, but unmistakably her. When it came to me, I told them about the memory, the drawing, the silver key, the mirror. Shay nodded. "The key is new. That means you're further in than most." "Further in what?" I asked. She didn't answer. Reed passed me a photo album. It was full of printed screenshots from security cameras, baby monitors, even doorbell footage. Most were blurry, but in some the girl stood clear as glass. Always alone, always half-waving. "Do you know her name?" I asked. No one did. "We call her Echo," Reed said, "because she's not the first." Later that night I returned home and made a mistake. I opened the drawer. The key was gone. In its place was a post-it note folded in half. I unfolded it with trembling fingers, written in jagged block letters, "She doesn't like locked doors." Behind me, a light flickered in the hallway. I turned. The mirror at the end of the hall was fogged. I stepped forward, heart hammering, and wiped the glass. This time, she was right behind me, no wave, no expression, just waiting. I didn't go to work the next day. I didn't call in either. I just watched the mirror from the couch like it was a window into weather that could kill me if I stepped outside. Nothing formed on the glass. No 307, no handprint. I almost convinced myself I'd scared it away. Then I opened my phone. Overnight, the repeating room had multiplied. New members, new sketches, new panic. People posted videos whispering into their cameras at 3 a.m., waiting to see what would come through. Comments warned them not to. Warnings didn't matter. Curiosity is a kind of gravity. It drags you down. A DM from an unknown account sat at the top. Dani, help me. It was her, finally. I called it once, straight to voicemail again. I typed, "Where are you?" The typing bubble appeared, then vanished. Appeared, vanished. When the message finally landed, it wasn't what I expected. I remember a birthday that wasn't mine. I don't want the cake. I want the key. I stared at the words until they blurred. The key. My hallway felt smaller. I went to the drawer out of habit, even though I knew it wouldn't be there. I still opened it. Empty, of course. Back in the group, Reed had posted a meetup call for that evening. "Emergency circle," he wrote. "Bring artifacts if you have them. We need to cross-check artifacts." We were talking about memories like crime scenes now. The circle was larger this time, 15 people, maybe more. The building's fluorescent lights hummed like my kitchen at night, a pitch that made my molars ache. Reed had pushed 2 tables together. On top lay a scattered shrine of ordinary objects made dangerous by context. A pear-shaped magnet. A sticky note with "She doesn't like locked doors." A child's plastic hairbrush with 3 dark strands caught in its bristles. A cheap digital clock unplugged. Still flashing 3:07, Shay stood beside a whiteboard where she'd drawn a rough map of a house. Kitchen, hall, bathroom. A blank rectangle where a bedroom should be, as if the room never decided what it was. "We're not here to prove it's real," Shay said. "We're past that. We're here to align details." One by one we spoke. The patterns clicked into place like magnets finding each other beneath paper. The lemon cleaner, the jelly hands, the half wave, the seashell eyes, the silver key. "Has anyone dreamed the same night?" Reed asked. "Exact time." Hands rose. "Not all. Enough." "Has anyone seen her in a reflection that wasn't glass?" Shay added. "Polished metal, water, a turned-off TV." A guy in a denim jacket nodded. "Sink faucet." She was upside down, like the world was correct and I wasn't. A woman wearing a lanyard with hospital ID said softly, "I saw her in my patient's cornea." He was comatose. She waved to me through his eye. The room shivered. It wasn't cold. Something else. A man in the back spoke without standing. "There's a case," he said. "Local, it's not public yet. My sister's a dispatcher. A 9-year-old missing 4 days now. Parents reported the last photo on their phone changed. The kid was gone from the picture. The girl was in his place." No one breathed for a long time. "What's the girl's name?" I finally asked, though I knew no one could answer. Still, the question felt like a ritual that needed saying. No one spoke. The hospital lanyard woman opened a laptop. She turned it so we could see the freeze frame of a doorbell camera. A porch, night, a small figure between the columns. The IR light made everything gray and bright. The girl stood in the center, looking at the door like she could see through it. "You said she needs reflection," I said, remembering the warning post. "Why is she so clear here?" "She had one," the woman said. "Look," she pressed the arrow key. The next frame showed what I'd missed. A rain puddle near the welcome mat. Thin, dark, mirror enough. That was when the projector hummed to life. No one had touched it. No one had even rolled it in. But its square of light snapped onto the wall and filled with static that wasn't static. White-gray noise flowed like fog across a riverbed. Shapes hinted underneath. Rooms, faces, corridors. "Turn that off," Reed said. No one knew how. The static thinned and coalesced into a feed of multiple cameras at once, like a grid of home security systems hacked into one mosaic. Kitchens, hallways, bathrooms. In each, a clock flashed 3:07 whether it was day or night. She was there in every single square. Sometimes near, sometimes far. Always raising her hand and stopping halfway. We stood in the blue light like passengers watching their own plane on fire. "Okay," Shay said, voice anchored by force. "We catalog. We don't react." She pointed at the board. "We lock down common features. We identify outliers." "My outlier is a smell," I said before I could talk myself out of it. "Wet pennies. Blood," someone said. "No," I said. "Metal, but not blood. I didn't say tongue. The room didn't need it. Anything else new?" Shay asked gently. I told them about Danny's messages. About I want the key. Shay drew a small square on the map where the blank room sat. We need to talk about the room that isn't a room, she said. Some of us are getting a second memory.
It doesn't start in the kitchen.
It starts underground. No walls, just pillars like a parking garage, but too close together. There's a line of nails on a board at the entrance. On each nail, a key, and a list of names that doesn't match any record we can find. The man in denim shook his head. I haven't had that one. You will, she said with a tired certainty that made me want to leave my skin behind like a coat. What about the missing kid? I asked the dispatcher's brother. Where was he taken? That's the thing, he said. There's no sign of forced entry. No prints. The window latch wasn't broken. The door was double locked from the inside. The camera on their porch glitched at 3:07 for exactly 3 minutes. He swallowed. When it came back, his mother was asleep on the couch and the boy's shoes were on the mat. Wet. Rain puddle. Reflection. Maybe she doesn't come in, Reed said slowly. Maybe we go out. No one wanted that sentence. The projector's grid stuttered, flickered, then spilled into a single image, the bathroom from my memory. Steam crawled the glass. In the fog, backward numbers appeared, 3:07. Behind the milky veil, something moved. Not a child this time. A tall figure passed the doorway. It paused as if listening, then turned its head toward us, toward the camera, toward me. I felt recognized in a way that made my body want to be a different shape. Shay killed the power at the wall. The square of light blinked to black. Meeting adjourned, she said. Everyone go home. Cover your mirrors. Aluminum foil works. No reflective screens after midnight. If you must use your phone, face down only. And if you hear knocking from the wrong side of a closed door, don't answer. Wait, I said. What about Danny? Text her one sentence, Shay said. What does she want? If you get an answer you recognize, it's her. If you don't, it isn't. I walked home under a sky the color of dishwater, phone heavy in my pocket. On the way, I passed the community center's front window and caught my reflection doubled in the layered panes. For a second, one of me didn't match the other. The lag was small, a breath between blinks, but I saw it. At my building, I climbed the stairs instead of taking the elevator because elevators have doors that make mirrors when they close. My hallway smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and old carpet. I unlocked my apartment, stepped inside, and taped aluminum foil over the bathroom mirror. It crinkled and crackled, my face breaking into 1,000 bright shards and then gone. I texted Danny, what does she want? The bubble appeared, vanished, appeared again, a room, then another message, a name. I typed, whose? The reply came so quickly it felt preloaded. Yours. A sound from the kitchen stopped my fingers, a soft lift, like a hand leaving a sticky surface. The fridge hum rose, not in volume but in attention, as if it were listening to me listening to it. I moved slowly. I opened the fridge door to break the hum, to claim the sound as mine. Cold light spilled over jars and cartons, and a Tupperware of leftovers that looked like more memory than food. Inside, on the middle shelf, lay the silver key. I hadn't put it there, I reached for it. I didn't mean to. My hand moved as if on a track that had already been laid, grooves cut by someone else's choice. The metal was freezing against my skin. It felt like pressing my palm to a winter window. My phone buzzed in my other hand. Danny. She says hurry. It's not your turn yet, but it will be. Another buzz. A photo. Not a selfie, not a screenshot, something older. A birthday party with a cake frosted white and 7 candles burned halfway down. Kids out of focus. A woman, maybe a mother holding a knife to cut slices. And in the corner, her, half-waving seashell eyes reflecting the candle's small suns. The picture changed while I watched. At first, I thought it was a trick of light, a glitch. But no, one of the boys near the cake grew a touch taller, a touch thinner, then blurred and resharpened into someone else. His shirt turned from red to white. A blue stain bloomed at the collar. He stared straight past the camera. He lifted his hand, stopped halfway. I dropped the phone. It clapped the tile and slid under the table. I didn't pick it up. The key pulled at my hand. There is a moment when you know you can still choose. It is smaller than you think it will be. It is the size of a breath before a word. I walked to my front door with the key in my fist. The door was already locked. I didn't need to check. I knew because the note had said what it said, and because the girl in all of us didn't like locked doors. I pressed the key into the deadbolt. Metal kissed metal. The cylinder turned. On the other side of the door, something turned too. Not the knob, not the latch. Something like a face aligning with a peephole. I leaned close. I don't know why. Maybe because fear teaches you to measure things with your eyes before your brain can lie. In the tiny glass circle, a dark pupil widened until it was all I could see. For a second, I thought it was mine, reflected back. Then it blinked on its own. From down the hall, 3 floors below, a child's voice floated up the stairwell, thin and thrilled. Like a kid calling a friend out to play. It's your turn. I turned the key the last quarter inch. The lock clicked, and nothing happened. No door opening. No breath on the other side. Just the echo of metal sliding into silence. I didn't move. I stayed with my hand on the key, expecting something. A knock, a whisper, a shadow reaching under the door like spilled ink. Nothing came, but the quiet wasn't relief. It was weight. A held breath in the walls, in the floor, in the space between the seconds. I left the key in the lock and stepped back, watching it like it might twist on its own again. When it didn't, I turned on every light in the apartment and sat on the floor with my back to the fridge. At 3:07 a.m., I blinked, and I wasn't in my apartment anymore. There was no noise. No just cold. This wasn't a memory of a kitchen. This wasn't the mirror room or the hallway or even the girl's perspective. This was new, or older. The world around me had no ceiling, just pillars like in a parking garage, but uneven, crude, made of something not quite stone. The air stank of wet soil and rust, and the light came from nowhere, the kind that seems to live in fog. I was barefoot. I could feel the grain of the floor, too smooth. Like bone polished by centuries of footsteps. Ahead of me, a plank of rotting wood was nailed between 2 pillars. On it, dozens of nails had been driven in haphazardly. Hanging from them, keys. All kinds. Old skeleton keys. Tiny padlock keys. Car keys with broken fobs. Each one labeled with a strip of masking tape. Each with a name scrawled in black marker. I stepped closer. The names weren't familiar. They weren't normal. Not human. One said Myra. Another said Hollow. Another was just a number, 214B. And one, near the bottom, written in trembling letters, said Danny. I reached for it, but as my fingers brushed the tape, a low sound rumbled through the room, like breath exhaled through stone lungs. Something was coming. I stepped back fast. The keys jingled softly, not from my touch, from air movement. I wasn't alone, from the columns beyond. Something stepped into view, not the girl, someone taller, a figure wrapped in a shroud of darkness. Face hidden behind glass, not a mask, but a mirror pane cracked straight down the center. It didn't walk. It tilted, like its legs weren't real, like it slid on tracks beneath the floor. When it turned its head, I saw not myself, but her. The girl, reflected in the mirror mask, half waving. But I wasn't waving. She was behind me in the reflection. I turned. No one was there. When I looked back, the figure was gone. In its place was a door I hadn't seen before. Wooden, ancient, warped by time and heat. A nail had been driven through its center, and on that nail hung a single key. Not Danny's. Mine. The masking tape read, "You, no name." Just that. My hand moved against my will. I grabbed the key. It was warm, pulsing. When I touched it, the floor vanished. I fell. No motion. No sound. Just falling without air, without gravity, without light. It felt like slipping between pages in a book no one had finished. And then I was in my bed, soaked in sweat, gasping, gagging. On the taste of iron, the time on my phone, 3:08 a.m. I had missed it. The lay. First time I hadn't woken inside the minute. I'd been taken somewhere else. I got up. My feet hurt. The bottoms were filthy. Black dust clung to my soles and ankles, as if I had really walked that bone-slick floor. The drawer I had locked was open. Inside was the masking tape label. You, nothing else. The key was gone. So was the silver one from the fridge. I called Reed. No answer. I messaged Shay. What's the second memory? Her reply came in a single text. Once you enter the archive, you can't leave without trading something. I stared at that sentence until my eyes blurred. Trade what? I typed, "What did you trade?" No reply. Instead, an image appeared. A photo of Shay, same face, but younger, wearing scrubs, stethoscope around her neck. She looked kind. Then another image. A current one. She looked older, grayer, more hollow. As if something had been taken from her, something beyond time. I searched her name online. She used to be a pediatric nurse. Now, no license, no history, as if she had never existed in that profession. Her place in time had been overwritten. I tried to call Danny again. It rang. She answered, but the voice that came through wasn't hers. Not entirely. "Hello?" It said, "I'm learning to use it. It takes practice, but soon you won't remember her at all." Then silence. Then, "You've already started forgetting what your mother looked like, haven't you?" Click. I sat on the floor staring at the walls, trying to remember the shape of my mother's laugh. I couldn't, not fully, just a faint echo. A reflection. I opened my notes app, typed everything I could remember. My real memories, my real name, my birthday, my dog's name when I was 7, my father's handwriting, anything as I typed. I looked up and saw the photo on my shelf. A picture from my 9th birthday, cake, balloons, and her, the girl, in the corner, half waving. She was never in that photo before. I picked it up. My hands trembled. My face, my younger face, was fading slightly, washed out. The blue stain on the girl's shirt was fresh, as if she had just arrived. It started with little things, the names of streets I used to know by heart, a favorite mug that suddenly felt unfamiliar in my hand. The way my reflection didn't quite match the rhythm of my movements. Like it was playing catch-up from somewhere far away, but it wasn't just me. At the grocery store, the cashier, who always wore a piercing smile, asked me, "Did you bring your daughter today?" I laughed, confused. "I don't have a daughter." She blinked slowly. Oh, I must have remembered wrong. But her eyes said something else. Like she wasn't remembering, she was convinced. That night I called my sister. She answered with a warm, relieved voice. "Where have you been? We've all been worried." I hadn't spoken to her in months. There'd been no fight, no rift, just distance. But something in her voice, it wasn't quite hers. It was too familiar, like she was reading a script of how a sister is supposed to sound. "I'm fine," I said. "Are you?" A pause, a click in the line. Then, "Of course, we're all fine. Mom made your favorite tonight." My stomach dropped. "What, mac and cheese? Just like when you were little." She paused again, longer this time. "You're still allergic to dairy, right?" "I was never allergic. I have to go," I said. "I'll call you tomorrow." I didn't. I blocked her number. It wasn't her. It was someone or something trying to be her. Over the next week, I kept to myself. I covered every reflective surface in my apartment. Foil, bedsheets. Even my phone stayed face down. The front camera taped over. I ate canned food cold and slept on the floor with headphones blasting white noise so I wouldn't hear the humming. The clock in my hallway had stopped at 3:07. I didn't fix it. The repeating room Discord was in chaos. Dozens of new reports. People seeing her outside windows, in puddles, on blank TV screens, and worse, people disappearing from memory entirely. One user posted, "My brother says he's an only child now. He swears I don't exist. My room is still in the house. My stuff is there. But when I visited, he screamed." Another, "I saw myself walking past my job, but it wasn't me. Just my face. On a woman I've never seen before." She smiled. And another, "I think I've been traded. I keep dreaming of a small white room with a chair and a mirror. And on the other side of the mirror, I'm watching myself live my life." I messaged Reed, "How do you know if you've been replaced?" He answered almost immediately, "You don't, but other people do." I left my apartment just once. I had to see someone, anyone, something real, tangible. I went to Danny's place. It was still her address. Still her name on the buzzer. I rang. The voice that answered was hers, kind of. "Who is it?" "It's me," I said. "Me who?" A pause. Then the door unlocked. I climbed the stairs slowly, every step feeling like it was about to collapse beneath me. Danny opened the door. She looked the same. But the light in her eyes was rehearsed, like a stranger wearing a familiar coat. "Come in," she said. I didn't move. "Do you remember the drawing?" I asked. Her smile faltered. "The girl," I pressed. "The stain on her shirt." She tilted her head. "What girl?" I stared at her. Then, slowly, she raised her hand. Half a wave, my blood turned to glass. I backed away, fast, almost tripped down the stairs. At the bottom, I heard her voice echo from above, calm, sweet, and wrong. "Tell her I'm ready to take your name now." That night, I looked through old photos, my childhood albums, family vacations, high school yearbooks. She was in all of them, not always in front. Sometimes she was blurred in the background, sometimes a reflection in a window, once in a mirror behind my mother, holding a small toy rabbit I'd lost when I was 5. Every appearance was clearer than the last, and every time she appeared, I looked less real, washed out, like a copy of a copy. The final straw came when I checked my ID. It had changed. My face was still on it. But the name? It wasn't mine. It wasn't hers either. It was a name I didn't recognize at all. I messaged Shay. "I think I've been swapped." Her reply, "Not yet, but soon. You've touched the key. You opened the memory. Now the only way to stop it is to make the trade yourself. Go back to the archive. Give her what she wants, or she'll take it anyway." That night, I didn't sleep. I prepared, drew a circle of salt in the living room, lit every candle I had, and at 2:13 a.m., I sat in the middle and whispered, "Take me back." Nothing happened. I whispered again, "I'll trade, just let me choose what I give." The lights went out, the floor vanished, and I fell again into the archive. This time, the pillars were closer together, the keys on the board were fewer. A figure stood at the center. The mirror face, the cracked glass, the shimmer of countless lives behind its mask. I stepped forward. "I want to bargain," I said. The air pulsed. The mirror turned toward me, slow and deliberate. And then from behind the pillars, she stepped forward, the girl, closer than she'd ever been, half waving, but this time, she finished it. A full wave, and she smiled. She smiled, and the archive changed. The air around me pulled back as if space itself were exhaling. The pillars folded in on themselves, not collapsing, but rearranging, becoming narrow corridors lined with long glass cases like museum displays. The ceiling dropped low and the floor shifted beneath my feet, no longer smooth bone but polished wood, too polished. Every step echoed like I was walking inside a memory of a memory. The girl walked ahead of me, not looking back, but somehow pulling me forward. I followed, not by choice, not by trust, but because the walls curved inward behind me like hands gently forcing me on. Each glass case was filled with objects. At first they seemed ordinary. A cracked lunchbox, a red mitten, a broken pencil, a plastic watch stuck at 3:07. Then I noticed the plaques. Each item had a nameplate, etched in crooked handwriting, and each name was real, familiar in a way that made my stomach twist. Not famous people, not history. These were names I remembered only once I saw them. The girl stopped beside a display with a pair of children's shoes, scuffed, one lace frayed. The plate read, "Danny, age 6, first trade." Silence. I stared at the shoes. I remembered them. I remembered her wearing them. But that wasn't right. We hadn't met as children, had we? The girl looked at me for the first time, not through glass, not in reflection, but directly. She opened her mouth, but no sound came. Instead, the glass in front of us fogged. From the inside, she raised her hand, and on the inside of the display case she wrote in the fog, "You forgot me first." My mouth went dry. She moved on. I followed. We passed more cases. Page torn from a coloring book, a photograph with the faces, scratched out except one, hers, a snow globe containing a house I recognized, but didn't remember ever visiting. Each item was labeled with names. Some were mine, variations of mine, middle names I'd never used, nicknames from childhood, old email handles, forgotten usernames, fragments. She was showing me the parts of myself that had already been traded or stolen. At the end of the corridor, we reached the final room. No glass cases here, just a wall of mirrors. Some tall, some wide, some broken at the corners, all facing inward, forming a circle. In the center, a single chair, and on that chair, a notebook. I stepped forward. The girl stayed behind. I picked up the notebook. It was filled with my handwriting. Pages of memories, real ones, or I thought they were. Birthdays, street names, laughter, scent, my father's hands, my sister's laugh, my first pet, my first scar, the first lie I ever told, the first time I saw her. At the bottom of the last page, written in ink darker than the others, choose one to keep. Leave the rest. That is the price. I turned to her. Her eyes were calm, expectant. I understood now. This was the trade. This was always the trade. Choose one memory to keep. Have you seen her? Have you remembered a moment that wasn't yours? Then maybe it's your turn now, if this story stayed with you. If you've ever lost time, or seen a face in your dreams that doesn't belong to anyone you know, leave a comment. Tell us what you've seen, what you've traded, what you've forgotten, and if you want to remember who you are. Subscribe to this channel before someone else does it for you.